Sleep doesn't switch you off. It switches you over. You were never unconscious. That's just what you were told. Every night, your body powers down, your eyes close and the world fades. But you don't disappear. You shift. You move. Your consciousness begins its nightly journey into the unseen. And the truth is, that journey has always been happening. The only reason you don't remember is because you were trained not to. From childhood, you were taught that dreams are nonsense, that sleep is just for rest, that anything you feel, see, or hear in the dream world is fiction. Random noise made by a tired brain. But what if that's the lie? What if your dreams are not illusions, but fragments of something deeper, a hidden world of meaning, memory, and motion? Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom, didn't treat sleep as silence. He saw it as a passage, a portal into other realms where the soul remembers its power. And every night, whether you're aware or not, you step into that portal. From the moment you learned how to speak, how to count, how to color inside the lines, you were also taught what not to trust. You were taught that dreams were just your brain playing tricks on you, that the voices, the places, the visions, none of it mattered. It was just a dream, they'd say. Every time you shared something strange, beautiful, or terrifying that happened in the night, the message came back the same. Ignore it, forget it, suppress it. This was not an accident. This was your first lesson in forgetting yourself. See, you were born open. Your early dreams were vivid, wild, symbolic. You traveled without knowing, drifted through layers of thought, time, and feeling. But you weren't allowed to keep that gift. You were gently redirected, nudged away from your inner world and toward the outer script. What mattered, you were told, was waking life, performance, productivity, the physical world, real life. But ancient cultures didn't see dreams as detours from reality. They saw them as the roots. In Egypt, dreams were considered messages from the gods. In Tibet, dream yoga was practiced to train the soul for death. And in Hermetic traditions, sleep was sacred, a way to access truths too vast for waking logic. Thoth wasn't just a god of writing and language. He was a master of astral law, the keeper of hidden dimensions. And he understood something modern culture has lost entirely. That sleep is where consciousness remembers its freedom. But instead of learning to listen to our dreams, we were taught to dismiss them. Schools didn't ask you to recall your dreams. They asked you to memorize equations. The media never praised the dreamer. They glorified the hustler. And when we did dream of something larger, more mystical, more profound, it was quietly pathologized. Dreaming became childish. Spirituality became irrational. Intuition became dangerous. And so, we began to lose the most valuable skill we have, the ability to perceive other layers of reality. Our dream muscles atrophied. Our inner vision blurred. But the programming went even deeper. You were taught that success is based on output, on goals and grades and measurable results. In that system, sleep became a weakness. Rest became laziness. Stillness became stagnation. But sleep, real sleep, is not still. It's movement, silent, hidden, subtle, but more powerful than anything you do during the day. Because while your body lies still, your mind is navigating entire landscapes of memory, emotion, archetype, and energy. Not everything can be said on YouTube, but we go deeper inside Academy, our free newsletter. For a limited time, you'll also get access to a free copy of the Babylonian when you sign up via the link below. The truth is, you were never meant to be cut off from your dream life. The system didn't just steal your time, it stole your night. But you can reclaim it because that sensitivity, that instinct you've always had, that there's more going on when you sleep than you were told, that was never wrong. It was buried beneath the schedules and screens and fluorescent classrooms that told you to get up early, work harder, and sleep only when necessary. But sleep isn't passive. It's a state of reception. And the only reason you haven't seen what lies beyond the veil is because no one ever taught you how to look. No one taught you that your thoughts before bed are programming your journey, that your emotional state becomes your vibration, that your consciousness doesn't wait to be activated. It's always moving, always listening, always reaching. This world we live in has conditioned us to fear the unknown. But dreams are the unknown you were meant to explore. They are not distractions from life. They are messages from your deeper self, from realms that operate outside of time, from echoes of who you were, before you were told what to be. Every night is a doorway, and when you start treating sleep not as rest but as initiation, everything begins to shift. You stop asking, "What did I dream?" and start asking, "Where did I go?" That question is the first crack in the wall they built around your inner world. That question is the beginning of waking up. Every night, as your body sinks into sleep, something extraordinary begins. Your breath slows, your muscles relax, and your mind drifts into what science calls the REM stage. But what they don't fully explain, what they can't explain with electrodes and graphs, is that in this moment, your consciousness slips through the cracks of physical perception and begins to move. Where it goes depends on one thing: vibration. And this is the part they've hidden, not just from textbooks, but from your entire culture. You've been taught to believe that dreams are random firings in a resting brain, leftovers from the day, useless imagery. But ancient knowledge, especially the teachings of Thoth, tells a different story entirely. Dreams are not noise, they're records. They're snapshots of the places your consciousness visits when your physical senses go offline. And when you begin to remember them, not just the content, but the feeling behind them, you realize something earth-shattering. Not all dreams are dreams. Some are memories. Many of the visions you've had weren't imagined. They were real experiences occurring in the astral plane, a dimension layered over this one, vibrating at a different frequency. This isn't fantasy. It's been observed, recorded, and even scientifically explored. Think of the work of the Monroe Institute, where subjects repeatedly reported out of body experiences consciously traveling beyond their physical forms, or Dr. Charles Tart's research on altered states of consciousness, where dreamers reported encounters and environments that were too structured, too detailed, too real to be dismissed as fiction. And yet the world around you continues to mock the very idea. Why? Because if you accept that your consciousness can move beyond your body, if you truly embrace that you are not bound by this physical shell, then you become very hard to control. The rules no longer apply in the same way. You stop playing small. You stop living in fear, because you start to realize that death isn't the end, that time isn't linear, that communication doesn't require words. In the astral, you can meet others, spirits, ancestors, even the living, without ever speaking a sentence. You can walk through cities made of sound or symbols or geometry. You can stand before teachers who do not speak in language, but in waves of meaning that hit you like truth directly injected into your being. But none of this is possible if you keep treating your dreams like illusions. They're not. They're messages, and sometimes they're warnings. Ever had a dream that came true, that showed you something days, weeks, even months before it happened? That wasn't a coincidence. That was your consciousness tapping into the non-linear field of time, where past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, and the soul can navigate across them like moving through rooms in a house. Some dreams are symbolic. Yes, they come cloaked in metaphor, not to confuse you but to speak to your deeper mind, the part that understands the language of the soul. Others are more direct. You find yourself in a place that feels more real than waking life. The colors are more vivid, the sounds more textured, the emotions more intense. That's when you've crossed the threshold. That's when you've slipped into the astral. This realm is layered. There are higher dimensions full of clarity, light, and wisdom. And there are lower ones, dense and chaotic, shaped by fear and unresolved pain. Where you go isn't random. It's determined by what you carry inside. If you fall asleep stressed, bitter, angry, you may find yourself in places that reflect that energy. But if you fall asleep with intention, with clarity, with curiosity, the doors you walk through begin to change. Thoth taught that the astral is a school, a mirror, and a proving ground. And whether you remember it or not, you've already been attending its lessons. The question is, are you ready to wake up to the truth of your travels? Because the next time you say, "I had the strangest dream last night," pause, reflect. You might not be remembering nonsense. You might be remembering where you went. Where your consciousness travels at night isn't determined by chance. It's shaped by what you hold within. Every emotion, every fear, every longing becomes the compass. The astral plane doesn't judge, but it reflects. It bends and morphs to match your inner landscape, almost like a spiritual mirror held up to your unconscious self. And the deeper truth, most people never realize they've been navigating these realms for years, mapping out dimensions that resonate with their hidden states of being. You could visit the most radiant crystalline spaces, full of luminous beings and deep insight. Or you might wander through gray cities, strange fog-filled rooms, or spaces that feel emotionally heavy, densely packed with confusion or static. These aren't dreams built from randomness. These are destinations, and they're not assigned to you. They're attracted to you. The astral responds to your frequency. It welcomes you into the rooms you've already built with your thoughts and emotional patterns. Fear takes you to places where fear reigns. Anxiety anchors you to slower, murkier zones. But peace, love, gratitude, these open the gates to dimensions that hum with clarity and healing. This is why ancient teachings, from Thoth to Tibetan mystics, always emphasize purification of the mind and spirit before sleep, not for religious ritual, but for navigation. Because where your consciousness lands determines what it learns, who it meets, and what it brings back. In the ancient temples of Egypt, initiates were taught to prepare themselves before rest. Specific chants, oils, and mental preparations weren't superstition. They were tools for tuning the self so that astral journeys could serve higher purposes. The Temple of Sleep wasn't a myth. It was a practice. Thoth's teachings, etched in the emerald tablets, point to this, that mastery of sleep leads to mastery of realms beyond the physical. And through that mastery, we evolve. When you become aware of this process, even a simple bedtime routine becomes sacred. Your final thoughts before sleep aren't throwaways. They're the ignition key. What you think about in the moments before your body lets go becomes the setting for your journey. That's why so many spiritual teachers talk about intention as a superpower, because it is. Intention doesn't just direct dreams. It acts like coordinates. Set it properly and your consciousness follows. You can ask for healing. You can ask for insight. You can even ask to meet specific guides or enter particular planes of learning. And often, when the request is clear and the vibration matches, the experience follows. Some have described waking from dreams with information they couldn't have known, languages they don't speak, or answers to questions they hadn't even consciously formed. This is the memory of the astral surfacing through the veil. It's fragile, easily lost in the morning fog. But it's real, and the more you pay attention, the stronger that thread becomes. But this is also where it gets challenging, because just as beautiful realms exist, so do darker ones. These aren't evil. They're denser, built from unresolved energy, trauma, fear. If you've ever had a nightmare that felt too real, that left a residue for hours or days afterward, you've likely passed through one of these zones, not to be punished, but to be made aware. They're calls to resolve, to release, to transmute. Thoth warned of these realms, not to scare, but to prepare. He taught that the astral isn't just a place of comfort. It's a proving ground, a place where your inner world is externalized, exaggerated, and placed before you, not to torment you, but to give you the raw material needed to evolve. It's one thing to read a truth in a book. It's another to face it in a realm where illusion dissolves, and your emotional energy shapes the walls around you. And this is where the real shift happens. When you stop seeing sleep as a break and start treating it as a training ground, your nights begin to change. You no longer dread the darkness or ignore the visions. You lean in. You become curious. You begin to understand that the realms you explore aren't just reflections. They're classrooms. This is the path Thoth laid out. Not escapism, but evolution. A nightly invitation to remember who you are beyond flesh and to confront everything that still keeps you tethered. Not because you're being punished, but because you're being invited to rise, to refine, and to remember. Sleep, then, is not the end of the day. It's the beginning of another kind of journey. Most people think dreams are private, just figments of their own subconscious, flickering images, leftover thoughts, bizarre narratives made up by a brain trying to organize its day. But that's a shallow interpretation of something far more profound. Because sometimes what you dream wasn't yours to begin with. And sometimes you're not the only one dreaming it. All over the world, from indigenous tribes to ancient mystery schools, there have been whispers of what are now called shared dreams. Two people, sometimes strangers, waking up with the same memory of the same place, the same events, the same conversation. They weren't dreaming alone. They were meeting somewhere beyond the limits of the physical, in what Thoth and others described as the Astral Commons, a realm where minds untethered from bodies can converge. You might brush it off as coincidence, but science is slowly catching up. Studies in consciousness research, including work by pioneers like Dr. Stanley Krippner and Dr. Montague Ullman, have documented cases where participants describe the same specific dream symbols or environments without prior communication. In some experiments, one person was designated as the sender, thinking of an image before sleep, while the receiver would dream that exact image, often without any clue where it came from. This isn't imagination. This is resonance. In the astral realm, where thoughts and energy move faster than words, your vibration acts like a signal. If it matches someone else's, you link. That's why some dream encounters feel so vivid, so real. You weren't hallucinating, you were meeting. And sometimes, that meeting holds meaning far beyond anything you've processed in waking life. People have described connecting with loved ones who had passed. Conversations so detailed, so emotionally charged, they changed their lives. Others recall encounters with guides, teachers, even beings of light who communicated without language, passing on knowledge that couldn't be explained but somehow was understood. Some of these encounters lead to emotional healing. Others plant seeds for creativity, innovation, or courage that emerge weeks or months later. And perhaps most mysteriously, some dreams slip through with warnings, predictions, or visions of events yet to come. They're dismissed until the event unfolds in real life exactly as foreseen. You may have experienced this yourself, dreaming of a conversation before it happens, of meeting someone you'd never met, or witnessing an event with eerie detail, only to see it occur days or weeks later. These aren't fantasy. They're fragments of time slipping out of sequence in sleep. The illusion of linear time weakens. Your consciousness, free from the chains of chronology, wanders into the field of potential. The past, present, and future become accessible simultaneously, not because time has changed, but because your perception has. You step out of the timeline and into the field. And sometimes, you bring pieces of that field back with you. What we call precognition, Thoth called remembrance. To him, all time was one eternal moment. And the human mind, when freed from the body, could touch any part of it. Not all dreams are visions, but many visions do come through dreams, especially when the conscious mind is finally quiet enough to listen. Still, not all dream encounters are comforting. Some feel invasive, others feel like battles. And in rare cases, people have reported being drained, challenged, or manipulated by energies they couldn't explain. This is the other side of dream travel. It's not a playground, it's a realm. And like any realm, it has layers, laws, and inhabitants. Just as you can bump into a familiar soul, you can also cross paths with confused or wandering energies, souls that haven't moved on, or fragmented aspects of yourself. You may even encounter symbolic projections of your own inner wounds masquerading as something external. That's why dream encounters, no matter how beautiful or terrifying, must be interpreted with care. They're not always literal, but they are always reflective. This is where discernment becomes essential. The more grounded you are in waking life, the clearer your dreams become. The more intentional you are before sleep, the more empowered you are within the astral. And when your emotional energy is stable, when you're anchored in love, not fear, you begin to attract higher encounters and experience deeper clarity. Sleep, then, becomes more than escape. It becomes communion with others, with guides, with your deeper self, and with the parts of reality that only reveal themselves when the veil is thin. There's a moment, just before you fall asleep, where something powerful happens, but almost no one talks about it. That liminal space between waking and sleeping is more than just a fading of awareness. It's an opening, a gateway, a programming interface for the subconscious. And if you don't use it, someone or something else will. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It receives and stores. It's the soil where every belief, habit, fear, and possibility is planted. And the moments before sleep are when that soil is most fertile. This is why so many esoteric traditions placed enormous importance on bedtime rituals, invocations, and focused intention setting. Because in that softening of the conscious mind, your inner world becomes programmable. What you tell yourself before sleep matters more than what you tell yourself during the day. That quiet, barely, their moment is where you cast the seed into your dream, into your future, into the deeper corridors of your psyche. Think about it. What do most people do in that space? They scroll. They worry. They replay regrets or dread the next morning. And so, that's what the subconscious absorbs. That's what becomes the lens for their astral experience. You descend into sleep vibrating with fear, scarcity, or distraction. And you wonder why your dreams feel chaotic, or why you wake up still exhausted. But what happens when you intentionally shape that moment? When you speak to your inner mind with purpose? Thoth taught that the mind is the architect of reality. That thought, when focused and directed, is the first tool of creation, and that the pre-sleep state, what modern researchers call the hypnagogic state, is the golden window for influence. Your conscious mind begins to dissolve, and the subconscious opens wide, listening without filters. This is where mantras, affirmations, visualizations, and quiet intentions slip past the gate and become law. Want to dream lucidly? Set the intention. Want guidance from a deeper part of yourself? Ask directly and simply. Want to rewire a belief that's been holding you back? Plant the opposite statement with feeling. It doesn't require ceremony or ritual, though those help. It just requires presence. The mind is always listening. The only question is who's doing the talking. And here's something the system would prefer you. Never realize your dream experience isn't passive. It's not random. It's reactive to the vibration you bring into it. A fearful mind will sink into dense layers of the astral, encountering symbols of anxiety or struggle. A clear, calm, open heart will float higher, accessing spaces that offer insight, healing, and peace. Where your consciousness goes during sleep is determined not just by curiosity, but by coherence. This is why children often experience vivid, fantastical dreams. They haven't yet been conditioned to doubt or suppress their inner senses. But as adults, that openness closes slowly. We're told dreams don't matter. We're told not to talk about them. And we lose access, not because it's gone, but because we've stopped knocking. You can return, but you must knock with intention. And if you've ever wondered how some people seem to manifest faster, how their intuition seems sharper, or how they just know things, it often starts here, with what they do before sleep. Because that's when they're aligning their inner field, choosing what to feed the subconscious, and giving direction to the soul before its nightly flight. It's not magic, it's practice. But to the untrained, it looks like magic. This is the technology hidden in plain sight. Not devices or machines, but the mind. Not the internet, but the inner net. And just like any system, if you don't program it, something else will media, fear, unresolved emotions, or the echo of yesterday's stress. These are the default coders. You must interrupt the pattern. Start with one sentence, one image, one feeling. That's enough to begin. The subconscious doesn't need volume. It needs clarity. And when you begin treating sleep as a conscious descent into deeper layers of reality, not just rest, but ritual, you reclaim a kind of power that's been stolen through neglect. You stop being a passenger in your dream world and start becoming a navigator. So tonight, just before you drift off, pause. Close your eyes, not in surrender, but in command. Whisper your intention, not to the room, but to the realm, and then let go. Time doesn't move the way you think it does. In the waking world, we're chained to clocks and calendars, linear, logical, predictable. But sleep dismantles that illusion. It pulls you out of the timeline you were told to obey and shows you something ancient traditions have whispered for centuries, that time is not a line, it's a field. How else do you explain dreaming about a moment before it happens? Maybe it was something small, a conversation, a place, a symbol. You brushed it off as déjà vu. But deep down something stirred, a flicker of recognition, that strange feeling that you've already lived this moment, already seen this face, already stood in this exact spot. It wasn't your mind playing tricks. It was your consciousness slipping through the cracks of time while your body slept. Thoth described time not as a forward march, but as a spiral, a dimension that bends, loops, overlaps. And when the body sleeps and the mind quiets, consciousness becomes unbound. It can glide beyond the present moment, brushing against memories not yet made, witnessing probabilities that have yet to unfold. This isn't fantasy. It's been documented, studied, even feared. The future, it seems, isn't hidden from us. It's just obscured by the noise of waking life. There are countless cases. People dreaming of disasters days before they happen. Strangers showing up in dreams only to become pivotal in waking life, and cryptic images that only make sense years later. These aren't coincidences, they're evidence. Sleep is where the veil thins, where the rules of linear logic bend and consciousness moves freely. Even science is beginning to catch up. Quantum physicists now argue that time is relative, not fixed. Some suggest the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously, layered like pages in a book. You don't need to write the story in order. You just need to learn how to turn the page. And during sleep, you do, again and again, without knowing it. But here's the catch. The quality of what you perceive depends entirely on your state of consciousness. Just like a foggy lens distorts an image, a restless or chaotic mind distorts the messages it receives. This is why clarity before sleep matters. This is why intention setting is not just new age fluff, it's precision navigation. If you enter sleep with fear, your perception bends toward confusion. If you enter with openness, symbols sharpen and patterns emerge. You won't always receive crystal, clear visions of the future. Often, the messages arrive cloaked in metaphor, symbol, and surreal narrative. But if you pay attention, if you record, reflect, and decode, you begin to see the map. You begin to understand that sleep is not passive, it's reconnaissance. And what about the dreamers who've seen too much? The ones who wake up shaken, as if they've been somewhere too real, too detailed to be dismissed. These are not just random firings of the brain. These are travelers who have brushed against potential timelines, carrying back fragments. The tragedy is that most dismiss these experiences before they can learn from them. They trade a glimpse of the infinite for the illusion of coincidence. You've had these moments. You've glimpsed something and felt the weight of its truth before it ever appeared in your life. The system taught you to doubt it, to explain it away. But what if those glimpses were guidance? What if they were invitations to prepare, to pivot, to wake up? The subconscious mind is not a vault of the past. It's a receiver of the infinite. And during sleep, when the distractions die down, it becomes a channel. The trick is learning how to listen. And even more importantly, how to respond. Because knowledge of the future, no matter how vague, is useless without action. The purpose of foresight is not fear, it's preparation. And it's not about controlling fate, but co-creating it. If you understand that time is fluid, that the dream realm is a space where timelines tangle and consciousness can explore across them, then you also understand the immense responsibility that comes with it. You are not a passive observer of your life. You are a navigator of possible realities. But you'll never see the signs if you keep closing your eyes. Where your consciousness goes during sleep doesn't just depend on biology or chance. It depends on frequency. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, vibrates. And during sleep, you don't escape these vibrations. You travel through them. The astral realm, the dream state, the hidden dimensions. They're not random destinations. They're tuned to your internal signal. Like a radio receiver locked into a specific channel, your soul moves toward what it's in resonance with. This is why two people can fall asleep in the same room at the same time, yet journey to completely different realms. One emerges from serene landscapes filled with clarity and messages. The other wakes in a sweat, haunted by chaos and distortion. The difference isn't the sleep, it's the state they entered it with. Fear, guilt, unresolved trauma. These carry weight, dense magnetic weight. When you fall asleep with these in your energetic field, your consciousness gravitates downward, not upward. It sinks into lower astral layers where confusion, fear, and even parasitic entities dwell. These are the nightmares that feel too real to ignore, the dreams that leave you exhausted rather than refresh it. They're not punishments. They're reflections, mirrors of the frequencies you've been radiating. But the opposite is also true. Love, gratitude, peace. These raise your frequency. And when you carry those into sleep, the dimensions you access become clearer, lighter, more instructive. You meet guides, receive symbols of healing, or gain profound clarity about waking life challenges. This isn't spiritual fantasy. It's vibrational law. Thoth taught that so above, so below is not just a metaphor for cosmic symmetry. It's a literal reflection of your internal world mirrored in the realms you enter. The emotions you hold on to in the day shape the landscapes you visit at night. You're not just drifting into subconscious chaos. You're navigating a map drawn by your own frequency. So how do you raise it? It starts with what you allow into your mind before sleep. Are you scrolling through stress-inducing news, absorbing chaotic content, or ruminating on past wounds? Or are you clearing your energy, expressing gratitude, setting intention? What you feed your mind before bed is like setting coordinates for your journey. And intention is everything. A simple statement, "Tonight, I ask for clarity," or "May I meet only what serves my growth," can alter the entire course of your astral movement. It's not the words themselves, but the frequency behind them that sets the tone. Intention, when aligned with awareness, becomes a form of spiritual GPS. Your environment matters too. The energy of your room, the symbolism in your space, even the position of your body can influence where you go and what you encounter. Sound, scent, and light. All of these act as subtle cues to the subconscious. They either harmonize you or disorient you. Sleep is not separate from your environment. It's shaped by it. This is why many initiates of Mr. Schools treated sleep as sacred preparation. It wasn't something to fall into. It was a ritual, a gateway, a voyage. They fasted, purified, meditated, because they understood the journey wasn't random. It was navigated by intention, frequency, and purity of thought. And you don't need to be an ancient priest to do the same. It's as simple as becoming conscious of what you're carrying when you close your eyes. Are you falling asleep in reaction or in awareness? Because that one choice determines whether your night is just unconscious recovery or conscious evolution. The truth is, your vibration isn't just a byproduct of mood. It's a passport, and sleep is the vehicle. Not every journey through sleep is blissful. Sometimes, what greets you when you close your eyes is chaos chases through endless corridors, dark figures watching in silence, landscapes soaked in confusion, fear, and dread. Nightmares aren't random glitches in the system. They're signals. They're teachers. But most of us run from them because we were never taught to face what frightens us. We were taught to avoid it, suppress it, and label it as just a bad dream. But nothing in consciousness is just. Anything, especially not fear. Nightmares are misunderstood messengers. What you see in them may appear terrifying, but its purpose is often diagnostic, not destructive. Nightmares can reveal wounds you've buried, emotions you've ignored, or unresolved patterns you refuse to see. They strip away the distractions of waking life and confront you with raw symbols. The aggressive animal, the collapsing structure, the silent figure chasing you, all reflections of internal energies demanding your attention. Thoth described these visions not as punishments, but as karmic reflections, symbols emerging from within your astral body, shaped by your subconscious conflicts. The lower astral realms are filled with fragments of human emotion, pain, jealousy, rage, fear. When you enter sleep with unresolved energy, your frequency aligns with these spaces. You don't create nightmares out of nothing. You resonate with them, and in doing so, you magnetize experiences that mirror what's festering within. The great mistake is thinking the nightmare is external. But the darkness in dreams doesn't come from a monster under the bed. It comes from the parts of yourself you've hidden from. And until you face them, they'll continue to meet you there. Because sleep doesn't let you escape yourself. It brings you closer to what's been pushed away. But here's the opportunity. Facing the nightmare transforms it. There are countless reports of lucid dreamers who, when they stopped running and turned toward the thing that chased them, found it changed. The attacker became a guide. The shadow turned into light. That shift isn't just metaphorical. It's neurochemical and energetic. When you interrupt the cycle of fear with awareness, your frequency lifts, and the environment around you responds instantly. That's the real power of lucid confrontation. Not control, but healing. In the ancient temples of Egypt, initiates were trained to enter altered dream states where they would deliberately confront their deepest fears. These dream incubations weren't for entertainment. They were rituals of purification, designed to test the initiate's ability to remain conscious in the presence of shadow. Because if you could face the darkness in sleep, you could face it in life. You may not have entered a sacred temple, but your bed is no less of a gateway, and your fears are no less worthy of being faced. The moment you stop labeling your nightmares as meaningless or scary and begin to ask what they're showing you, you open the door to transformation. The chasing figure might be a part of yourself crying out to be integrated. The falling sensation might be the surrender you've avoided. The repeating loop might be a trauma you've yet to process. These aren't enemies, they're invitations. And don't think the work ends with one realization. Often, these dream shadows return in layers, like peeling back the skin of an onion. Each confrontation reveals another truth, another fear, another piece of yourself waiting to come home. This is the journey of dream alchemy, turning the lead of your fears into the gold of your growth. Many spiritual systems teach the path to awakening as light, filled and serene, but those who've walked it honestly will tell you it's also messy, shadowed, and raw. Nightmares are not detours from your spiritual path. They are part of it. They demand courage, presence, and a willingness to ask, why am I seeing this now? Because timing is never random. What appears in your sleep shows up because you're ready. Maybe not to enjoy it, but to grow from it. The system conditioned you to see sleep as a shutdown and dreams as fluff. But your darkest dreams are coded messages from the parts of yourself you've forgotten or rejected. Facing them is the first step in remembering who you really are. Not just light, not just shadow, but the awareness that holds both. And that awareness, when brought into your sleep, changes everything. Because when you stop running and start listening, even your nightmares become sacred. You were never meant to sleep through your own evolution. But that's what the system hoped for, that you'd close your eyes and forget, that you'd dream without asking why, that you'd wake up each morning no wiser than the night before, because a society that doesn't understand sleep is easier to control. A mind that drifts without direction never questions where it's going. But when you start remembering, when you begin reclaiming your nights, you become dangerous. Not violent, not reckless, just awake. And that's the one thing they never wanted. The truth is, the dream world was never fantasy. It was always training ground. Every night, you enter a space where the laws of physicality dissolve, where time bends and the self expands. That space can be chaos or clarity, depending on how you approach it. With intention, sleep becomes a classroom. With awareness, it becomes a temple. And with practice, it becomes a launchpad into the depths of your being and the universe beyond. Thoth didn't teach that dreams were just anything. He taught that during sleep, the soul loosens its grip on the physical shell and travels, sometimes guided, sometimes lost. The travel isn't metaphorical. It's energetic, vibrational, and increasingly supported by modern science. Quantum consciousness research and the study of non-local awareness are only beginning to confirm what mystics have always known. The mind is not bound to the skull. Sleep is not the end of awareness. It's the beginning of another layer of it. But for the modern mind to return to this understanding, it has to unlearn generations of cultural dead ends. We've been taught to fear the unknown, to explain it away, to strip it of mystery until all that's left is a brain in rest mode and a pile of nonsense images. But if dreams were so meaningless, why do we remember the ones that matter? Why do we wake from certain nights with a message that echoes, a feeling that lingers, a change that begins? Sleep isn't a waste. It's sacred. And the moment you begin treating it like that, like a time to set intentions, review lessons, ask for guidance, and consciously direct your energy, everything begins to shift. You're not just laying down. You're preparing for exploration. You're priming your mind to receive, to reconnect, to remember. And it doesn't take expensive tech or secret rituals. It takes presence. It takes the decision to treat your nights with as much awareness as your days. Because here's what they won't tell you. Most of your spiritual growth doesn't happen during meditation or yoga. It happens at night, when the mind is quiet, when the ego is suspended, when the soul is free to roam. That's when the upgrades occur. That's when the real learning begins. That's when you remember that consciousness isn't something you have. It's something you are. Something infinite. Something that never really sleeps. And this is just the beginning. You don't need to be a monk or a mystic to access these truths. You only need to begin paying attention to the world behind your eyelids, to honor your sleep as the multi-dimensional journey it really is, to view your dreams not as distractions, but as data from the soul. Because every night, you have the chance to grow, to explore, to connect with something greater. But you have to choose it. You have to want it. So here's your next step tonight. Don't just go to bed. Set an intention. Ask a question. Invite your higher self, your guides, your subconscious, whatever language you prefer, to show you what you need to see. Keep a journal next to your bed. Write what you remember. Patterns will emerge, messages will become clearer, and slowly, the wall between waking and dreaming will thin until one day you won't feel like two different people living two different lives. You'll feel whole, awake all the time. And when that happens, when more of us begin walking through the world with the memory of our dreams, the system loses its grip. Because a population that dreams consciously cannot be controlled unconsciously. A society that treats sleep as sacred builds a culture of inner power. And when individuals wake up within their dreams, they inevitably wake up in their lives. Now, before you close this video, consider this. The secrets shared here only scratch the surface. There's more, far more, that can't be said on YouTube. If you truly want to dive into this journey, sign up for our free newsletter, Insights Academy, through the link in the description. For a limited time, you'll also receive a free copy of the Kabbalonian, a foundational text of Hermetic wisdom delivered straight to your inbox. Don't miss this. What you'll find there may shift everything. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it,"